So here we are and talking with Rafael Puerto from Rebel Talent in Spain. Hello, Rafael. And
Hello, Carmen.
David Hoff in the United States of America,
Good
and
afternoon,
me
Carmen.
in Chile, South America. So we are happy to be together again and having this great two people, especially David, that will talk about his books and learning agility. So, one of the first questions I have for you was uh, who we are. Let us present us and the connection we have with learning agility and the Burke assessments. How about you, Rafael?
Which was the question, Carmen?
Who you are and the
Who am
connection
I?
the
Okay,
connection
okay.
with learning agility, how you arrived to this topic and to the assessments, and let us
Well,
meet you a little bit more.
yeah. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the question. Well, actually, I've been related to the human resources area for a long, long time. I think that over 15 years now. And my previous years, my early years, what I did was headhunting and assessment to candidates evaluation. For development, for recruiting, and like 4 years ago, more or less, I started thinking about how would we select or choose candidates for non-existing jobs, for jobs that are appearing or flourishing in the future world thanks to the technology. And that's the reason why I started thinking about what should we take a look at. I started thinking about adaptability. I started thinking about emotional intelligence, but I arrived to learning. I started exploring learning, and this is how I arrived to David Hoff, his work. Not only, but this is the work that I preferred most, what I embraced. I'm being, involved and reading and using a lot and spreading the word around learning agility for a couple of years now, I think. So I speak a lot, Carmen. So I should finish here, I suppose.
No, but it's great to. I didn't know that part of your story and how you get involved with learning agility. This is interesting. Uh, and how about you, David? How you arrived to learning agility
Uh, well,
and the assessments and all
yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, it goes back uh, a number of years ago, back when I was an internal person with Anheuser-Busch, and I was responsible for leadership development, and we were trying to accelerate the development of leaders, and the, the the focus at that time was on competencies and matching competencies that people had or didn't have along with what competencies that were required for jobs. And there was like this X factor called learning agility, which really, really interested me. But when I tried to get the people that I was talking to about it to define it, to how would I measure it, I never got a straight answer. And so there was a period of time where I just figured, well, it's going to be one of those unanswered questions in my life. And then I reconnected with Warner Burke about 10 years ago, and he said, I think I can measure this thing. And I said, well, if you do, I'd like to represent it. And so that's how our collaboration began.
It's interesting too. I've heard that story, but it's always pleasant to know that there's a historical part of learning agilities. It wasn't like we know it now. So this evolution is interesting for me. And I arrived to learning agility during my master in human resources because I was searching for something to do my thesis. And the question I found was uh, here in Chile, many companies are using like Scrum and these techniques to agile their companies, but the things weren't working as they should work, in my opinion. And reading about theories, I think that I found that if you want an agile company, you must have agile people inside there. And nobody was working in individuals' agility. And I think that learning agility helps us in that, to make teams more agile, persons inside the teams. That's my part of my arrival. And I had to mention the theory of Carol Dweck, because I think that mindset of Carol Dweck is like the grandmother of learning agility, in my opinion. What do you think, Rafael or David?
Well, you know first, David, please.
Well, a little backstory there. Carol Dweck is now on the faculty at Stanford in the U.S., but prior to that, she was on the faculty at Columbia. So there's a connection between Carol and Warner Burke, the person who the assessment is named for. So they are very much in agreement about the role that mindset, which is Carol's area of emphasis, what that says about a fixed versus a variable mindset. And she contends that you need a variable mindset in order to be able to adjust, adapt to changes out there in the environment.
Interesting, because I love that book, and I've read it much
Me too.
many times, and I always find something to work in that. What about you, Rafael? What do you think about Carol Dweck's work and learning agility?
Well, I think that are absolutely connected, because you need to be, as David was saying, you need to be open minded and open to, open to learn, open to grow, open to explore. I always used to say that the self awareness journey is the toughest journey ever, because you need if you start the self awareness, self knowledge journey, this journey should start with knowing for real yourself for real, and you're going to see things that you don't like, and you need to see, okay, I don't like that, but I need to work on that, and I can work on that, and I can develop new skills or whatever. So to me, learning agility and the concept around growth mindset and the possibility and the openness to grow and learn are absolutely connected. I are both concepts. I love them a lot, and I read the book a lot of times too, Carmen.
We have things in common.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I have another question for you guys. It's uh, why learning agility, and why now? I like this question. What is your opinion, David, for this question? Why learning agility, and why now?
Well, that's an interesting question, Carmen. For the world, for all of us, coming out of the pandemic, where everything stopped, and people had to figure out different ways to work. And the interesting thing was they did, and at least here in the U.S., there are a lot of people in companies where the senior management is saying, "Okay, now come back to the office," and they're saying, "I don't want to. I'm much more productive if I'm working in at home in a very quiet environment. I get more done, and so on and so forth." The other thing that I would say is with something like what's happened, I think that there are a lot of people who are being somewhat opportunistic, and I guess there's a part of me that says good for them. And what I'm talking about is I think everyone and his brother, or there are all kinds of people that are trying to jump on the learning agility bandwagon, whether they've got anything to contribute or not. I was doing a session with another person connected with the Burke in Hong Kong last week. And just before the session, I came across an advertisement that talks about who should become an agile certified human resource and learning and development professional. And they go on to talk about this 2-day experience that they're going to put you through, and you're going to figure out how to be agile in terms of the things that you offer as in leadership development. And quite frankly, I think it's a bunch of bunk. I don't think there's anything to it, but that's unfortunately one of the things that we have to address is how do you separate the stuff that's real from the stuff that's, in my opinion, made up. And we're going to talk about what differentiates the Burke from other things in a few minutes, but I'll stop with my rant right there.
But if I understand it's in the bottom of what you say, it's you find in the market things that are good and things that don't.
Yeah.
Or they have, like Burke work with theory and research and something serious.
That's
and
exactly.
You will always find things that are not so serious in many other subjects, not just in learning agility. And it's your confiability and trust. I don't think, it's always in Chile, you will find things about emotional intelligence and people selling things, and not everybody is serious, but it's the way the life is like that. What do you think about Rafael?
Well, what I do love.
You
Yeah.
catch what it's David's in the bottom of what he says.
I don't know because David is too deep for me. You know, he knows a lot. But well, I was thinking about what really connects me is the domains. No, the domains are really well thought, and has everything to do with the reality of nowadays and why learning agility is so important today. Because if you want to have an iterative mindset, innovative mindset, you want to learn and all this stuff, you need to take interpersonal risks. You need to take performance risk, performance around risk around performance. You need to seek for feedback. You need to collaborate. You need to do a lot of things that all that domains has to do everything with the future of work. To me, the people that don't master those domains or skills or abilities, you call it whatever, I don't want to be. I don't want to give bad news, but I don't have good news for them. Unfortunately, let's leave it there in a polite way. So that's what I think around why leveraging there. Why now? It's key to me.
I will go back to something that David said. You will find always marketing and big companies of human resources around the world that are selling learning agility. Agility is like a sexy word now on.
Yeah.
And the name of learning agility takes you to something that it's not really what it is. People says it's something for kids, learning something for the school, not for the companies or leadership. What do you think about that, David? About the name? It's difficult for you to explain it.
No, not necessarily, but I understand how people might say, well, yeah, learning is something that young people do when they're in elementary school or high school. But no, I haven't had that be an issue.
And Rafael, what do you say when people you meet and talk about learning agility? Their their brain goes to other places.
No, no, they get it very quickly, and they found it really interesting. And please tell me more, explain me more. That's my experience. It's true
Uh-huh.
that now I'm hearing a lot of the term that there a term coined that is learnability. David, have you heard about learnability? The people are starting talking here in Spain around learnability.
Ability as opposed to agility.
Learn ability.
Yeah,
Learnability.
yeah.
We need to measure learnability. The skill of the future is learnability. What does it mean? I don't know if you heard about that.
Uh, no, that's a new one for me, Raphael. But maybe what we need to do is start now with the definition that Easy Consult and Warner Burke use for learning agility. So if we could show that slide.
Here we are.
Yeah.
That was just the next question. What is it in
Yeah.
this learning agility thing?
Okay.
Perfectly introduced, Carmen. Very well done.
So there are two side-by-side definitions, mine and Warner Burke's, and there's not really any significant difference between the two. It's just more a perspective. So Warner Burke has been on the faculty at Columbia for 37 years, and he would say, I'm a researcher, I'm an academic. So his definition of learning agility is having the ability and willingness, which he describes as flexibility, which happens to be one of the 9 dimensions, to quickly, which he then characterizes as speed, which is a second of the 9 dimensions, to try out new behaviors in novel and challenging situations. So having the ability to and willingness to try out new behaviors in novel and challenging situations. If I were to use so I'm the practitioner. If I were to stand up in front of a group of executives and say that, they might say, I don't know what you're talking about. So I've come up with something that seems to resonate with internal executives. And that is, you find yourself in a situation where you've never been before, you don't know what to do, and you figure it out. Okay, so for me, if I was moving an executive from one country in the world to another country in the world, it's a situation they've never been before. They don't know what to do, but they got to figure it out. And Raphael was talking a few minutes ago about trying to decide who the best person is to put into a position. And this is a new position. There's never been anybody in that position before. So there's a certain amount of ambiguity and uncertainty there. And clearly, learning agility can add to that situation.
I don't know if you want to go ahead with your presentation because you have these definitions in this second slide, I think.
Well, if we were to skip ahead to the slide that says, does learning agility equal intelligence? I think that may speak to Raphael's comment a couple minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could put that one up.
I don't know if Rebecca can help you to go ahead with your presentation, or you had to go with your...
My understanding was that she was going to advance the slides. So I'm not sure how to do that.
Rebecca is saying that you had to do it with your keyboard.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Okay, we see it.
Okay, now,
Perfect.
yeah. So
amazing.
Yeah, Raphael's question was, he's now hearing people talk about learning ability as opposed to learning agility. Okay, And when I am talking to groups, a lot of times, I will ask them, is the smartest person in the room the most learning agile? And your people's gut reaction is they want to say yes, but they stop because they remember that person who was very intelligent, but not necessarily learning agile. Okay, so what we say is that uh, there's a difference between cognitive ability, uh, intellectual horsepower, and learning agility. So you need a certain amount of intelligence, and most people that we're dealing with in business settings, meet that criteria. They have the required amount of learning ability, but then it's a question of how agile are they, and you would measure those two things different ways. If you wanted to measure learning ability, you would use a cognitive ability test. You'd measure their IQ. If you want to measure their learning agility, you would use one of the Burke assessments. I don't know if you guys want to comment or disagree or.
Not really. Not really. I
Okay.
No,
don't
I
agree.
think it's a very good example and interesting
Yeah, it
thing.
is.
Yeah.
I know, David, that you represent Burke measures of learning agility,
Uh-huh.
Burke Learning Agility Inventory.
Yeah.
Are there other measures of learning agility, something you mentioned before, and how it's yours different?
Yeah. Um, Great question. Yes, there are other measures out there. Some, I'll just say, less rigorously developed than others. But in terms of how we would describe our measures of learning agility is twofold. It's based on theory and it's based on research. So 10 years ago, when Warner said to me, I think I can measure this thing, he went back with his doctoral students at Columbia and they went to the literature. And when they looked at what had already been done in the area of learning agility, the best piece of work that they found was something by Deroux, Ashford, and Myers at the University of Michigan. And Deroux and uh, his colleagues said learning agility is about two things: speed and flexibility, period. So um, when Burke and his doctoral students dove into that, they confirmed, yes, we're finding speed and flexibility as being really important, but there's 7 other things, okay? And so when we talk about that, at the bottom of that slide, what Burke and his people did was build on the work of Deroux and add conceptual clarity, which are the 7 other dimensions that make up the 9 dimensions in the Burke.
This is very clear in your first book. Very interesting things to read. And I read the Rui Ashford and Myers, and it's
Yeah,
a great paper also.
yeah, yeah,
I recommend it.
yeah.
Oh, David, let us share with us the 9 dimensions that Burke arrived to.
So those are the 9. And you'll notice on the slide that flexibility and speed are in a, they've got a blue background.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for 2 reasons. We describe flexibility and speed as the drivers of learning agility. Um, there are 9 factors. There are 38 items that make up the Burke assessments, and flexibility has 5 items, and speed has 5 items. All the other 7 dimensions have 4 items. So one could say that flexibility and speed have a little bit more weight in terms of the overall score than the other 7.
Mm-hmm. Uh, uh, it, can you share with us how it looks, the self-assessment, for example? What happens? How can I measure my own learning agility, for example?
Well, so let me just have one intermediate step here, which is to talk just for briefly about the assessment itself. So I talked about the top part.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom is that for each of the items, the question is asked, please consider how often you engage in each of the following behaviors at work. And then there is a 7-point Likert scale from a person choosing I never do this to fairly often a 4, or to I always do this as a 7. So someone goes in and they answer the 38 questions, and then we provide them with a report. And first they get an overall score. So in this case, on a scale of 0 to 100, this person scored at the 53rd percentile, meaning they scored higher than 53% of the norm group, and not as high as 47%. So well, I don't know if I want to digress and talk about norm groups. So you asked about the output of the report. So then the following page in their report would have a profile by dimension. Okay, so in this case, the person's highest scores were speed and experimented. And their two lowest dimensions were interpersonal risk-taking and collaborating. So if you can see that on the screen. So at the highest level, looking at the top, the person's fairly learning agile. They've got it's more than the 50th percentile. Then looking underneath the hood, if you will, looking at the dimensions, that gives you an idea of, well, they're pretty good at speed, they're pretty good at experimenting, may not do a lot of interpersonal risk-taking or collaborating. So what follows in the report is a page for each of the dimensions. So in this case, we've got flexibility, and the person scored at the 46th percentile. There's an initial paragraph that talks about how the person showed up in general in terms of flexibility. They're not stuck in their ways compared to the norm group, and it makes a suggestion about what they might do. Then you see underneath that the bullets. The bullets are the specific items that the person responded to for, in this case, flexibility. So you offer proposed solutions that are innovative. Your input helps others in their efforts to solve problems. People will seek you out as a resource on their teams and projects. Second, describing the difference that exists among points of view is an ability you sometimes display. So a person could take away from this, if they want to increase their current score on flexibility, one of the things that they could focus on is being able to describe differences that exist among points of view and try and get better at that.
Excuse me, David, is it possible to make the assessment in Spanish?
Great question. As of today, we have the Burke Learning Agility Inventory, the self-report. This is what I've been showing you in Spanish. So the answer is yes, we have the Burke LAI in Spanish today.
And how can I get it?
Well, you could go to the Easy Consult website, and well, first of all, someone would have to be certified, and we can. I'm not sure we want to talk about that process on this session, but someone could be certified. Now, it just so happens that both Rafael and Carmen are certified. So if someone wanted to go through and take the assessment, you could go through either one of them or through myself, and we can get you assessed, and then we would have a certified person give you the results. That's one option. or you could get certified yourself and then go in and conduct assessments and do feedback sessions with the people that you are working with.
The great news is that if you don't speak English, you can make it in Spanish. It's great for our Spanish speaking word.
Absolutely.
Okay, let us go ahead. I would like to, um, for example, know how to use this assessment. If I have my overall score, and how can I use it?
How about if you just finished working with a group in Chile? How did you use it with them? And then I'm going to come to Rafael before I uh, add my 2 cents.
Uh, this group in Chile didn't make the assessment.
Right.
They just have the meaning of each dimension, and
Right.
we go ahead through the 38 uh, descriptors of behaviors
Yeah.
to explain them, how it works, and how can they develop them if they feel that they can grow in that area. So it wasn't exactly using the assessment, but it was very interesting because it was something absolutely new for them. What was learning agility? And this company is working in an hybrid way of working. They go to the office 3 days in the week, and 2 days they make home working. So it's very interesting that they are facing new ways of work, and how can they develop in their group learning agility in this hybrid way of working. That was more or less. And what is your experience, Rafael, working with this? Let us know about that. Share it with us.
Well, actually, this is what we do at Rebel, and we are delivering now a lot of projects around moving or evolving the hybrid way of working of a company or a team or whatever. For example, I'm going to buy now, David, today or tomorrow, seven steering committee people here that they called us for. We want you to guide us through what they call the cultural journey. And they didn't they they were not thinking about uh, using assessment or whatever, but we what I suggest them was, okay, why don't we start from the top level? Why don't we prepare the steering committee for the change? And why don't we create the necessary awareness on the steering committee for approaching the movement they started hesitating a little bit, but finally they agreed. And the last Thursday, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah, Thursday, we launched the project, and we are starting the assessment phase with them. I'm going to buy the 7 assessment, 180 assessment, because I love something that I don't know if we have shared or not, but what I really like the most around this assessment, this tool, is that you could use the 180 and also 360 assessment, so you can have a more wide view, not only about yourself but also how the others see you. And and it's very powerful and very impactful. And it's even better, or the power is better of the impact, when you work with senior people. That's my experience. Senior people, they are more shocked, but they are also more moved. And that's what I would share with you. I
Yeah.
speak a lot, Carmen, so I don't want
No,
to
no, it's
a lot.
okay. Something that I think it's a good tool should be for the future to have 360 and 180 assessments in Spanish too, because here in Chile it's not easy to find people that understand correctly the English to make the assessment?
Spain is almost the same, Carmen. It's almost the same. So sometimes I need to translate. But if you pay a little bit of attention and make a little effort, you can go through the assessment. It's not so complicated, the question. That's my experience. So maybe sometimes I have to help them with real time translation.
I
Well,
think
of course, it would be great to
it
have
would
that
help,
in Spanish. Yeah, of course,
especially
definitely.
360, in which you have to ask the people that works with that people, um, not just the
Yeah,
boss
it's true.
that maybe
It's true.
speaks English.
Yeah,
But it's something for the future. We are starting to walk to push this learning agility to Spanish, because I think that when you
you
don't
did a
have,
great job on that. You did a great job on that, translating the
I
book.
did a great job. I'm starting that job, because if you don't have the things translated, they don't catch it, because the university can't give you the books in English to read, or other material to study. And we have masters in human resources, psychology, people working in human resources, and they need the topics in Spanish. So that will be my little help. So let us go ahead with something else. David.
Now, before we leave that, Carmen, I want to come back. I love both of your examples, and I know that in the work that you recently did in Chile, there was not an opportunity to do the assessment. And when you and I were going back and forth, I've been in that situation uh, rarely, but part of what I try and do is have a person say to me, or ask them, tell me about a situation where you were successful, where that went well. What learning agility capabilities, which of the 9 did you use? So they have to think about that. Then I asked them for a time with a situation that did not go well, that was new, ambiguous, and what things could they have used that might have made a difference. So the the issue is when you're working with someone around learning agility, you need to what I call validate where their starting point is. And while sometimes people they struggle, they have blind spots. They don't know. Geez, I think I do this, and other people would say, no, you don't. So that's the value that Raphael was talking about in terms of the 180, right? But at a for me, I'd love to have somebody have some data, their own data on the self-report. Most of the time, we get a pretty good picture, but we may miss a few things. That's why I love the 180, because whoever the other person is, and typically it's the boss. The boss says, "Well, you think that you do a lot of performance risk taking, and I don't, or you think you're really flexible, and here's the experience where I don't experience that." So it's helpful. Now, if you add the 360, there are things that we do or don't do. Maybe some things with a supervisor, some things with peers, some things with direct reports. So that's where you get increased fidelity, I'll say, with the 360. Um, and we will continue to move in the direction of translating the 180 and the 360, assuming that we get demand for those variations of the assessment. Um, yeah. Okay. That's it.
It's for the next month, I
Yes.
hope.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's go with some other questions. Um, you have 2 examples of reports, mine's and Rafa's. Would you like to share it with us? And
Okay. Um,
how it looks with real people?
yeah. Okay. So this is Carmen's actual Burke Learning Agility inventory that she took in 2019, so 2 years ago. Okay. And so what what do you see? Well, let me put Raphael on the spot. What do you see in this? What do you see for the overall? What do you see in terms of the profile by dimension?
What do you want me to do?
What do you have to? This is somebody that you've given this assessment to. What do you see? You're going to have to sit down and what I call validate this with them. Um, what do you see that you want to talk with them about?
Well, the first question is always, David, about how do you feel about your results?
Yeah. Okay.
How do you feel? How do you see yourself? Something that surprised you or not? And we will go through each domain and visit certain questions. What I see that is very curious how hugely high is experimenting on Carmen, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Also, the two of the key dimensions that are flexibility and speed, she's scoring a little bit low,
Yeah.
to say it politely, of
Yeah.
course, a
Yeah.
little bit low. But well, it makes sense. They are connected. Collaborate. It makes sense to me that collaborating and feedback seeking are a good score, because to me, a good collaborator is someone that is good, seeking feedback and giving feedback. So to me, that makes sense. Also, this point of reflecting, if you are good at experimenting and also good at reflecting, is so powerful. All the things that you can learn. That would be
So
my own reflection on this.
So Carmen, when I asked you, because I always do this, to predict what your overall score would be, do you remember what you told me?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was absolutely out of. I didn't catch. I said just mistake things. I wasn't aware of my scoring. And what happens when I was answering the assessment,
Yeah.
many things sounds new for me.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
put, I never do this. I never do this.
Okay.
uh, there
So
were new in these 38 items. There many things that were absolutely new for me, and some others that I know that I did. But it was a little bit surprising. But
okay.
I know that is a baseline, and it helps me to go ahead and practice. And for me, my working in this period in this last 2 years was working in flexibility and in the way that Burke defines flexibility, which is accepting new ideas and mixing ideas from other people and building something new, like making brainstorming and accepting new options in that way of flexibility. And I think now I'm better. I think
Yeah. So I would. So if I did you think it was going to your overall score was going to be low, average, or high?
I thought higher.
Okay. All right. So higher. So it was a little bit
I
of a
remember
surprise.
that.
Okay. Okay. So it was a little bit of a surprise. And then when you
Yes.
saw by dimension, and I asked you to tell me what your two highest scores would be and what your two lowest scores would be. Do you remember what you told me?
No, I don't remember, but I know that I wasn't correct. What I predict wasn't, and at the end, what was corrected.
Okay. So you didn't think experimenting would be as high as it was?
No, no, I didn't think that. I don't remember. Do you remember, David?
No, I wish
No.
I had it, but I don't.
But something that I remember that while I was answering many of the items, the 38 descriptors
Right.
wasn't they were new for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a good way of knowing yourself, but it's just a baseline to
Yeah.
work in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so having had interactions with you for the last 2 years, I would say that I think that overall score is higher. That's what I experience. And then you've talked about for you some of the terminology or the descriptions of the behaviors by dimension that was new. So what it says is, and where that came from was the research that were people that were more learning agile. These were the 38 things that they did. So it's then a question of, and we can go to, yeah, here's flexibility. And to your point, it was fairly low. And when compared to the norm group, you fall below average when facing a situation you never encountered before. Consider not responding. What additional data do I need? Okay, so it's not backing away from it. It's moving forward into it. So you offer solutions that are innovative. One of your capabilities is handling multiple priorities simultaneously. You sometimes look at a broad range of options before deciding the one to pursue. Describing differences that exist among points of view is an ability you sometimes display, and finding common themes is something you have not demonstrated. So for you, those last two in particular would be things that you could work
I
on, right?
Yes, because I never imagined that I had to work in that.
Yep,
And that is interesting.
yep,
Normally, I take all the decisions myself, and I
yep,
had to be more open to
yep,
other ideas from other people, other solutions.
yep.
So it's correct.
And I would say you would be an easier person to work with. Sometimes people are a little bit more uh, not so willing to say, yeah, that's me. So we have to look more specifically at situations where they're successful and not successful in order to help them. Because the objective here is to understand what is you, and then what things do you want to work on if this learning agility thing is something that's important to you.
Mhm. It's an interesting conversation, but I wanted to share with you and Rafael what I feel when I was making this assessment. Oops, this is finding common things. I don't know. So let us go ahead with the questions.
Yeah.
How would you know if you have become more agile?
Yeah, that's a. Let me jump in, but I don't want to monopolize the time here. Um,
Because we have just 10 minutes ahead.
yeah, yeah. Well, so the thing I would say is that sometimes people will ask me this question, and if I was thinking from a marketing point of view, I'd say, well, you take the assessment again. That gives me more revenue, and yes, I'd love to have more revenue, but quite frankly, I'd rather have the person be able to demonstrate these behaviors more often. And for me, if you analyze situations going forward that the person is in, and if it requires certain of these behaviors by dimension and they're demonstrating it, aren't they more learning agile? I think so. You guys may disagree with that.
No,
Raphael?
I agree. What do you think about Rafael?
No, I agree too.
Yeah. So uh, if somebody's in fact working on this, then the expectation is that they would be more learning agile. The problem is people want this to happen overnight, and it just doesn't work that way. We're trying to change people's behaviors, and that's hard work. And there are too many people that don't want to do the hard work, and so in that case, no, they're not going to become more learning agile.
Uh, Something that I found in your book too,
Yeah,
to develop, that you uh, share with us in your book some examples for each behavior, for each of the 38. And it's very helpful because there are things that you really can do, not the 38 in the same time, but you can pick one or two that you feel that are more near or you want to develop, and you can try that. And there are examples that are really simple, I think, that you can really do. And in that sense, making them more often, I don't think it's a hard thing. That's the way I explain to the people. Making something, you had to do it, just do it. It's simple to do it. If you want to be seated or sleeping and the change will happen, that will never.
No,
That
but
will never.
it's also important, Carmen, that the people understand that what David is saying and you're saying too, that this is not going to happen overnight,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you need to focus on what you want to work on.
yeah,
In my opinion, that's my opinion.
yeah,
Look for something with quite a nice impact and not a lot of effort for you to do, and
yeah,
start from that. Start doing things that are not so hard to you,
Mhm.
small step, tiny steps, and then let's build on that. That would be my point on here.
yeah. So to go back to the books, the first
Oh,
book, yeah, Carmen.
you have your slides of your books.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Oh, that was me.
There you go. Yeah, that was you. I'm going to let you off the hook today, Raphael. So
Thank
the
you, thank you.
the first book, Learning Agility: The Key to Leader Potential. Uh, I'm going to say something that may annoy any human resource people that are on the call, but I said to Warner, we need to write a book at the point that we had the first assessment, because I said human resource people will not know how to use this. So the first book is what is learning agility? What does it look like? And I have examples for each of the dimensions. What does it look like for experimenting for an individual contributor, experimenting for a middle manager, experimenting for a senior manager? And we've got that for each of the dimensions. And then it's talking about, okay, so how do you use this stuff? Well, there's a chapter on using it for selection and using it for development and using it for succession. So there's all kinds of applications. That's the first book. The second book is, Carmen's already kind of talked about it. It is how do you develop each of these things? And performance risk taking for me, that was the first chapter that I wrote, because it's like, if you look at a situation and you say it's high risk, and I look at it and I say it's medium, until we get the same yardstick, then we're not going to make any progress. So it was explaining to people how you would go about that, and I tried to do that for each of the 38.
I think it was very good, interesting, and it helps a lot with the people that I met in the last weeks.
Yeah,
I take all the examples and maybe some adjust, but if you find something you want to develop, you will find examples in this book. Who is going to present the Spanish book, number one book?
well, the number one
David.
book has been translated by Carmen, and
I
it
will
is
show it.
available, and it is on Amazon.
It's like a commercial space here. So it was a hard work, but it's a good work because it's like studying, but deeply.
Wow, I am forever indebted to you for that, and you did a wonderful job, and hopefully it will lead to greater interest and activity around learning agility in the Spanish-speaking world.
I hope so too. So somebody in the future, some young people making their thesis will find something in Spanish, not just in English.
Yeah, yeah.
So let us go for book two now. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
So let us uh, let us go for book two because I think it's too helpful.
Where do you want to go with that, Carmen?
And I think in my holidays, in the next your winter, my
Yeah,
summertime, I have
yeah,
much more time because in this period of the year, it's like crazy
yeah.
and I don't have much time. But let us make the effort. And I will take all my medicines and my vitamins to be very intelligent for the next summer.
Okay, very good.
Uh, and my last question for Rafael and for you that have the experience all around many countries and people that are working with learning agilities. Now we are three continents: South Americans, Europe, and North America. And Rafael, uh, have you seen any differences and in learning agility in different geographies, or you expect any difference for the future? How do you see the develop of learning agility with book one and book two and the assessments and the marketplace? What do you think about the development for the next period?
So there are a lot of questions in one, isn't it, Carmen?
As I was trying to make it just
Yeah,
one
we
question,
condense. Yeah,
condense
yeah, but
everything for the last
yeah,
4 minutes.
yeah. Well, what I would tell you is that I appreciated. Well, I'm curious, and I'm guessing, just guessing. Maybe David has more to say about this, but I'm guessing that's something around personal risk taking or feedback seeking. This here we can find some cultural differences. Depending on the culture that you are in. For example, the Asian culture, I can imagine that they are, scoring really low around for example, personal risk taking or feedback seeking. To be honest, what I've used, what I've seen, I have not a lot of difference. The What I see in the market is that a lot of things appearing. This now this hot topic around learnability that people are talking about. But what I see, to me, what was a really really good news is that in the World Economic Forum, they always publish the next big skills for the future and so on, and they were always publishing the skills for the future, and learning never appears. And last year, you know uh, uh, finally, we want to publish the brand new future skills and so on. And in the number two, the second one was learning, active learning, and learning strategies, that is learning agility. They could write just written learning agility. So I truly believe, and I think that the next big thing around talent is going to be upskilling and reskilling. And what more has to do with learning agility rather than upskilling and reskilling? So this is the next big wave, and hopefully everybody will jump in. I hope to. But I'm thinking of, if I want to hire someone for my team, don't tell me what you've done. Tell me how and how fast you're able to learn and incorporate that learning in your daily work. That's the big thing to me.
What do you think about this big question, David? What's the future for learning agility?
Yeah, well, there've been people that have asked us to come up with a measure of team agility, and Warner has slapped my hand in saying it's not an arithmetic sum of the people in the group. It's
Mhm.
we need to measure each person's ability to contribute to the agility of the group, and so it means yet another assessment that measures both learning agility and really organization development. So I've given Warner a rest after we came out with the second book, and but I'm about to say that because we did a draft and we had some things we weren't happy with, so it's be going back because there is interest in, yes, an individual's learning agility, but if they're a part of a team, how do we assess the team's learning agility? So I think that's maybe next
steps.
Next steps.
Great news for learning agility.
Yeah.
Never ending journey.
Never ending. No, that's right. Never ending.
It's a topic for the future, I think. As Rafa says, it's a peers learning. And I think there is interest in the people to understand more what is this potential of a leader, not just what he does
Right.
in the past, but the potential. So it was a great conversation. We present the Spanish assessment, the Spanish first book, and there's a lot to be done yet, and to help people to be more agile in learning.
And I want to take this opportunity to thank both of you guys because you've been two of the disciples around learning agility in your respective parts of the world, and you got to keep going forward. So thank you.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing. Yeah.
And keep writing. Keep thinking.
Yes, keep writing.
Oh, Rafael.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and to share this conversation. Thank you, David, for your books. And next time we had to invite Werner Burke also.
We'll see about that.
What do you
would
think
be
about
amazing. That would be amazing. I would love to have
just for a talking for the next month. I say hello from here.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening for you in Spain and a nice, ¿cómo se puede decir? Una bonita tarde for you, David.
Yes.
A nice afternoon.
Great to have you here.
Goodbye. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.